My name is Sarah Baratich. I'm 17 years old. I was born in Hartford, Connecticut, and I grew up in Albuquerque, New Mexico.
My name is Elizabeth Ensler. I'm 19 years old. I was born in Lugano, Switzerland, but now my family lives here in Washington, D.C. When you think of, like, when I think of women, I think a lot of just like, yeah, mother figures. Like, I think about the most important women in my life, and they're definitely mothers. They're like my mother and my grandmother. And like, I think it has such a huge role on who we are as women. And I think all women have a natural desire for motherhood, even if it's not like your own personal children, like if not your own biological children. I think each woman does have a desire for motherhood, whether it be through like mentorship programs or adoption, or just like being a school teacher even, or like a daycare person. Like, I think every woman has that desire to care for someone, and I think that's just like an innate thing we as women have.
Yeah.
But I don't think it has to be your child. Like, I don't think that is a requirement.
Yeah. I agree, and I think that like another huge thing is that a lot of women in our society, at least like as young people, I feel like a lot of women feel the need to be really like rebellious and angry about the fact that I don't want to have children, like you can't tell me what to do, that sort of thing. But like I feel like we should get to a point where you don't have to be like that. Like you don't have to be so outwardly opposed to it all. Like you can just be like I don't want to have kids and nobody like judges you for that. But I know that's not a thing. Especially nowadays, I feel like everybody is always hyper aware of what they're doing and hyper aware of how other people think.
Mm-hmm.
So like if you do something wrong or something that people don't necessarily agree with, a lot of the times people won't say anything to you because that's our society. Like it's so politically correct
Yeah.
now. You know?
Especially in America. And I know like in other countries it's very different, just with like my dad being European and having grown up in Switzerland. Like, it's a really different thing. It's like I don't know, like in Europe, like specifically with my Italian grandmother, there is so much more pressure
Yeah.
to have children. And I think if I were to tell her I didn't want to have kids, it would be like a really big thing. But at the same time, it's not something that's necessarily talked about. I think it might just be not so much in American society as in other like cultures, but like this underlying like known thing that women are supposed to have children unless they're like a religious sister or like something like that. I think it really is kind of a big thing in our society, especially because like women are the ones that can carry children.
Yeah.
Which I think a lot of the time is just like forgotten about. That it's like, okay, yes, childhood is like being a mother is a really important thing, and it's really hard, and it's like this big, not burden, but it kind of is. It changes the entire scope of your life, everything, your body, your social status, like the way like your family makes such a huge impact on you. And so I think a lot of the time people forget that when they're thinking about motherhood. Like, I've heard people say like, oh, I'm scared of it, I don't think I'm cut out for it. But in reality, it's like we all have this innate thing, and like we as women were made to create children. And that doesn't mean that you have to, but it does mean that we all have like, not the responsibility, that's not the right word, but it's like we all have the ability to. And so it shouldn't be something that everybody like has an opinion on. I think it really is the woman's decision in the end, if she's going to have the child or if she's not going to.
Yeah, I don't think anybody's like born with like more or less predisposed to be a good mother. I think that it's the way you're raised and also just the expectations that people have for you. So like we grow up thinking, "Oh, I'm not going to be a good mother. I'm not going to do this well or that well." But everybody parents differently. Like there are things that all parents should do, but there are so many things that each parent can do differently. And that's why like we all grow up differently. And like I feel like if that was more known, like if more people recognize like not all people parent the same way and that's okay, then people would be less stressed about being a parent in general.
Yeah.
And they would also, I feel like that would take off some of the pressure of like being a mother and feeling the need to be a mother. If you like, oh, you're such a motherly person, you should have children, like that kind of thing.
There's just like this idea of a cookie cutter, like perfect mother, and there isn't one. And people have said to me before, like, you're gonna be such a great mom, like I can't wait till you have kids. And I'm like, okay, yes, like that's a beautiful thing, and I want to have children. Like, it's not that I'm like opposed to it, but also I feel like it's kind of weird that people just have this like feel like they have the ability and like they're in a place where they can tell you that. It's kind of weird. I feel like it's something that people comment on too much, if anything. Like, I love the idea of being a mother, and if that's what I'm supposed to do in life, like I will embrace that. But at the same time, like I don't think it's everybody else's responsibility to like tell me how I'm supposed to do it. And like I don't know. Yeah, I really don't. I'm not a fan of that when people are like,
Me
oh,
neither.
I
Like,
think
they
you're going to
think
be
they
a
have the right to
great
tell you
mom.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm like, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, maybe I don't want to be a mother. Yeah.
Yeah, and the other thing is that like a lot of celebrities too nowadays are kind of doing the whole, oh, you can do it all, like you can be a mother and you can have a great career. But honestly, when I think of like the kind of careers that like I'm studying to do,
Mhm.
it's like a full-time thing. And so I do want to do a lot of like you said, like I want to do a lot of that before I get into having a family, because for me a family would be a full-time thing too.
Yeah.
You know, caring so much about my children and my family and my household. And obviously I'd still focus on my career, but it would be different, and it's different for women.
Yeah.
And that's why, that's why we have like maternity leave, and that's why, because it's so important to be there for your children. And it's okay if you want to have it all, if you want to have a career and you want to, parent at the same time. But again, everybody does it differently. Like, it's not going to work for everybody like that.
I feel like, too, like, I mean, my mom was a stay-at-home mom, and that made a huge impact on my life, just like coming home and having her there. And I would love to be able to give that to my children, but at the same time, I would like to have a career at some point. And so just like trying to figure out how that would work. I mean, granted, I'm not married, I don't have any children, so like I can't really gauge it, but just like thinking about it in advance, like, can I, being me, like individually, the strengths I have, the weaknesses I have, am I in a position where I could have a professional career and have children and be able to like fully give myself to my children? Because I don't want to be a negligent mother. So if I'm in a position where I don't feel like I can give my all to my children, I wouldn't want to have children, because I want to help form them into incredible human beings. Like you
Yeah.
look at people, and some of the greatest people I know had excellent parents. And so I feel like that is such a huge, important thing,
Yeah.
that I wouldn't want to have children if I didn't feel like I was in a position where I could properly care for them and properly help them.
Yeah, like I don't personally feel like I have the right to be a mother just because I'm a woman, like just because I have that like the physical things about me allow me to do that. It's such a privilege to bring someone up in this world. Like, it's so much work. That in itself is such a huge job. And I feel like a lot of the times people think of, oh, you're a stay-at-home mom. Oh, that's not something you should be doing. Like, let's get rid of that stereotype. But like, it doesn't have to be a bad thing. It can be something you're proud of and something that you want to commit to. Because bringing somebody up and forming who they are and how they'll affect this world, that's a huge, huge job. Like,
Yeah.
that's a lot of pressure, and it's okay if it's not for everyone, you know?
I feel like, like we're talking about the American society and how it like doesn't put like restrictions on, like, or not restrictions, but like make comments necessarily about like if you should have children or not. But I feel like just like listening to what you're saying, it like dawned on me that in our society, more than thinking like should you have children or not, it's how you should act when you have children. And the fact that like this stereotype of like a stay-at-home mom, how that's oppressive to the woman, when in reality it's like it's not. Like, my mom was a stay-at-home mom, my grandmother was a stay-at-home mom. Just like not all women can unfortunately have the ability to do that or choose to do that, but it's like it's not a bad thing. It's not a bad thing to want to stay home and to take care of your children and to cook for them and like just be in that position. It is a full-time job, and people a lot of the time look down on that choice as opposed to like choosing to have children or not to have children in general. So I feel like that is probably one of the biggest negative aspects of the American society that aren't necessarily found in other societies. Like, whereas in Italy it might be that there's like this pressure to have children and to be that great stay-at-home mom, whereas in America it's like kind of looked down on to be a stay-at-home mom who chose not to have a career, to like just live with her, like take care of her children. And again, not everybody unfortunately has the ability to do that, or necessarily that's like the best thing for them. But I think it is such a beautiful thing for women to be able to do that. That all being said, like I do, especially like thinking about women and childless women, I definitely think that in any situation where a woman is presented with a child, like is put in a position where she could be a mother, I feel like a lot of the time it's really hard for women to like choose to be the mother in that situation, like having to choose being a mother over her career. But I do think that's important. When there is a child, I think it's our responsibility as women to care for that child, especially if it's our own, like if it's a surprise pregnancy or whatever it might be. I think it's really important as women to step up to that and to take care of that child, even if it's not your own. Like grandparents who will take care of their child's, like their child's child, so their grandchild and things like that. I think that's really important.
Yeah.
Just because they are at such a fragile place in life and they can't take care of themselves.
There's also like this other aspect of it that's kind of like medical. So a lot of women, younger women these days, especially in America and like a more liberal culture, like feel the need to make a statement a lot of the time. So like I know women who have had their uteruses removed because they're like, oh, I'm never gonna want to have children. And I like the way that my mind works on that for me anyways would be like I wouldn't do that because like what if my mind changes down the road, because it has changed. Like throughout my life I've thought, oh, I want to have children, I don't want to have children, I do, you know, so I never know what happens in the future. But if you were to ever say something like that, or like even in a friendly way, even just like pitching an idea to somebody before they make such a huge like biological change to themselves, you'll get shot down for that because you're not letting the woman be independent and live for herself. But like you are letting her live for herself, but just like her future self.
Right.
But I mean, obviously everybody's different and everybody has different values, but I don't know. I just could never bring myself to do something like that because I just never know what's going to happen down the road. And I also think about all those women who can't have children. And even if I don't end up having children, like to be able to like do that for somebody else, you know? If I don't want to have children, but I can like carry a child for like if one of my siblings can't have children, you know, something like that. Like that would be such a huge privilege to do that for somebody. And I think that there is stigma around that kind of thing, but like it's a child, you know?
Yeah. It's
I mean,
not like a dog. It's like a human being.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. Okay, earlier, this is totally changing topics, but earlier you had said your mom is a neurologist. So like what was that like for you? I mean, my mom was a stay-at-home mom, so it's a totally different experience. So what was that like?
Yeah, so for me, I mean, my mom did have a full-time job from the moment I could remember, just always at work. She really worked so hard. But she also, when I was there, I also remember her being there all the time, you know? So luckily I grew up at a time when she was still doing her residency, so she was still like educating herself, going to school, so she still had time to like be with us. And she still does, even throughout her entire career, even as she develops years and years into her professional career. It was different because it was my dad who stayed home. I mean, he had his job, he had school, but he was the one who was like at home most of the time. But we all understood it. It was for her education, you know, it was for this dream career she wanted. And all of us never stopped supporting her in that because she always supported us. So she is kind of like this embodiment. When I think of like somebody who has it all, like the woman with like the career and the family, you know, that's like I think of my mom. But I personally don't know if I would be able to do it the same way. Just because she was raised in a completely different culture than I was. Her parents feel completely differently than I do. And from the moment she was, you know, born, she was brought up like in a culture where women, you have to have it all to be noticed. And I don't have that pressure. And I'm like really grateful I don't, because it makes it so that I can kind of pick where I want to go and have more leniency in what I want to do. But at the same time, I do sometimes wonder, like, if I were presented with her opportunities that she's had, would I be able to do it all? And I honestly don't think I would, because I've never had that kind of pressure.
I feel like a lot of the time we forget too that like all women are different. And so like what you were saying about your mom, like she had all of these incredible opportunities and she was able to like take them, but like would we be able to do it? And I just like think of all of these different women in my life and who have taken different paths and have like done different things with their life, and it just like I'm astounded by some of the things these women are able to do. Like one of my aunts, she just had her 7th baby, and this woman is like on fire. She is a homeschooling mom. Her house is immaculate. She like hand makes bread. Her children are brilliant. She hosts like music nights and plays, and she's just like the most incredible woman ever. And I look at her and I'm like, wow, I would love that. But at the same time, I don't know if I could do that. And then like I look at my friend's mom who had like 3 children, and she was a realtor and a dental hygienist and like cooked and cleaned and took care of all of her children. And this woman who chose a totally different career path is also such an inspiration to me. And so like I look at all of these different women, and like my own mother, who like we grew up in a foreign country and my dad worked all the time, and just like her ability to grow, like help us grow as like individuals. And like there are 5 of us, and that's a lot of people. And it's just like looking at these different women and like the way they have been able to like fulfill the things in their lives by choosing to do completely different things.
Yeah.
And so I feel like there is no cookie cutter mother. There is no cookie cutter woman that we all have to like fit into. I think not all women are cut out to live the same lives. Like I don't think I could have a professional career and have children. I just like I don't think I would be able to divide myself that way. But that doesn't mean that other women can't. Like clearly like your mom, like she was able to be your mom and a neurologist, and like that is incredible. But I don't think I could do that. Like I don't think I have the strength for that.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's really interesting. It's such a unique thing to think about.
Yeah.